Good morning. Welcome to Trinity. I'm so glad you're joining us on the virtual service. This morning we're looking at this wonderful passage in Luke, and we're going to talk about a strange subject. We're going to look at the subject of scapegoating, or maybe the bound will. And so we'll begin with that word scapegoat. Have you ever been a victim of a scapegoat situation? One of our children recently went through this. It's one of those things that never fun, especially when your child's being accused of something that's not true. Yet it's the world that we live in. Doesn't make it right, doesn't feel good, but it is an interesting situation. We all scapegoat or have been victims to it. In fact, Paul says, or he asks, I should say, why do I do the things I hate? And why do I not do the things I should? I think the answer is found in our passage today. The theological term for this is called the bound will. You see, in our passage this morning, we have a poor woman who has been physically deformed for 18 years, serious back issues, hunched over, can't look anyone in the eye, presumably in a lot of pain. 18 years, think about that. She had tried everything, I'm sure, but couldn't heal herself. We humans cannot heal ourselves, physically or emotionally. That is what is called the bound will. So what's your problem? Where do you feel bound or out of control, so much so that you need to scapegoat? What's wrong with you? Probably not back problems, but where are you bound? But what's the problem that controls you? The one that you've tried to solve or cure, maybe even heal, and you just can't. Nothing seems to work. Is it physical? Is it emotional? Is it something you do? Is it a characteristic? Perhaps you're angry and you can't control your anger sometimes. Perhaps you have destructive selfishness. Perhaps you have destroyed relationships in your past that you've tried to restore and just can't. Perhaps it's depression or anxiety, or perhaps it's some type of systematic abuse. Maybe it's substance abuse. Have you ever tried to fix it on your own? How's that going for you? I bet not very well. Yeah, we can have momentarily lapses of fixing ourselves, but they tend to not work. That's the bound will. If your will is free, then with just enough willpower and strength, you can kick that problem. But if your will is bound, then you can't fix the problem. You need rescue from outside. So how does Jesus interact with people who have big problems like this? Well, let's jump into our passage and look a little closer. There he was, teaching in the synagogue on the Sabbath, the day when you weren't supposed to do anything. You actually were supposed to rest. And he sees a disfigured older woman. She wasn't beautiful, at least according to how our culture defines beauty. She had nothing to really offer Jesus. She had no money, no power, not even a little prestige. And yet Jesus was drawn to her. In the midst of her helplessness, Jesus actually loved her. He actually stopped teaching. It'd be as if I came down out of the blue down here to address someone specifically. And he reached out to her. She's the one Jesus paid attention to, not the masses. And in the midst of her pain, Jesus stopped what he was doing, and he simply pursued a hurting, isolated woman. The only person in history that can feel morally superior by right was the one who was washing feet and touching leopards He was the one kind enough to break the problems of sin. And he actually ate with sinners. He was kind to broken down people. And he healed her. And not because she brought something to the table. She was curved in on herself, isolated, just like us, if we're honest. And Jesus loved her. And she was, and he healed her. He loved her just as she was. Think about that. And he healed her. She immediately stood straight up. She could look at people in the eye now. Her lungs filled for the first time in 18 years. The pain was gone, and she glorified God. What a natural response to God's love. And it was a wonderful, joyous occasion, certainly something to be celebrated by all who were there to witness it. And yet, the religious authorities of the day had the exact opposite thought. It angered them. They were indignant that Jesus would do such a thing on the Sabbath. How dare he work on this sacred day? What kind of rabbi is he? Who does he think he is? Where does he think he is? Does he think he's in control of this synagogue? Does he know the law of Moses? And that we were called to keep the Sabbath holy? Not to do anything except be? Why is he working like this? This shouldn't really surprise us. It really shouldn't. How often, think about it, how often do religious people use religion against people rather than for people? You ever been there? You ever had a religious authority do something that hurt you or harmed you or made you feel less than? If so, I'm really sorry. It shouldn't be that way. Hopefully I never do that to you. But I'm made of this stuff, and if I do, tell me so I can make it right. Religious people have a long, sordid history of defending our man-made religious principles or ideologies or institutions at the expense of fellow human beings. It's the powerful, and even the religious authorities want to control you. They want to exert power over you. They want to manipulate you. And they'll use God's holy, right, good, and true law to do it. But let's look a little closer at the guy's response. This specific rabbi who was so upset with Jesus. It's clear that he was threatened by Jesus, but he publicly rebuked the woman who Jesus had just healed, not Jesus. He transferred his anger onto this helpless poor outsider instead of, wow, that's wonderful. I'm so happy for you, sister. Let's celebrate God's love. Let's celebrate this healing. No, rather he says, there's 6 days to which you ought to be healed. Come on those days and not on the Sabbath. Oh, wow, he's so religious, right? Adventures and totally missing the point, right? A woman was just dramatically healed, and this idiot was worried about the day it happened on. She didn't even ask to be healed, much less have some grand scheme or plan on being healed on the wrong day. Do you see what he's doing here? This religious professional is taking God's beautiful law, his right, good, true law, and he's twisting it, and he's adding to it, and he's manipulating it so that he can use it to have power and control over people, specifically her in this situation. He's actually trying to make the law manageable so that he can manage and control people with it. He's taking the concept of the Sabbath, get some more rest, and using it to exert power over people, using it to keep people down, using it to enslave people rather than to set them free. Here is a good test to know if that's happening to you. If it feels like you're being lorded over, you probably are, so run. If it feels like your religious power play is happening, it probably is. So run. Just make sure you run the right direction. Don't run away from God. Run to God. If it feels like control and manipulation, well, it probably is. So again, run to Jesus, to the arms of him who loves you, because we Christians and religious leaders can get bent around the axle on some of the craziest things in the world. I read an article just the other day of the importance of not hitting the snooze button. A whole piece written on why it is a sin to hit the snooze alarm and how we can fight being a sloth if we overcome this awful addiction of hitting the snooze button. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was so ridiculous I couldn't help myself but continue to read the dumb article. Is that what we've come to? I hope not. Is this really why Jesus came? Did he really come to help us to fight the addiction of hitting the snooze alarm? Soon we'll have so much applied Christianity that we'll have no Christianity to even apply if we're not careful. You know what Jesus would say in that article, or about that article, to some saint who's physically exhausted? He would say, hit the stinking snooze alarm. Hit it 3 times if you want to. Heck, hit it 10 times. Because he was about people. Back to the story. Jesus came along and he blew up their whole power control system by actually giving people rest on the Sabbath. And this guy is completely ticked off. But let's go a little deeper. What we hate about ourselves, we project onto others and try to destroy them. That's what my kid experienced a few months ago. And that's what was going on here. This guy is projecting all of his own shame and brokenness and sin onto this poor woman. And then he attacks her right there. He probably, don't know this, reading between the lines, but he probably just broke his own Sabbath rules and was feeling really bad about it. But he couldn't admit that. He couldn't confess it. So he attacks someone else. Example, we see it in our culture today. Just read the paper if you need a bigger example of it. We see things like, he's narcissistic, or she's homophobic, or just look at those things we project on our kids, or that we project on our spouses. Here's another little test to see if these things are happening. If someone is really hung up over a certain sin in other people, then that's a really good sign that that individual is secretly struggling with that very sin and using the other as a scapegoat. So who or what is your scapegoat? I've got good news for you. The God of grace goes deeper still, even for those of us who have our own personal scapegoats, our own personal things of deflecting. You see, Jesus is always for the person, not the institution. He was for the deformed woman, and he healed her. But he was also for the ruler of the synagogue, too. And the sad thing is, this poor ruler wouldn't go there. He wouldn't admit his great need. He wouldn't admit that he, too, needed healing. He was more interested in power moves and controlling people and faking worthiness so that he wouldn't have to deal with his own stuff, his own mess. You see, Jesus didn't come to control you or to control them. He came to heal. He came to make all things new. He didn't come to project his own stuff onto you or to attack you. Why? Because he had no stuff or sin or anything to project. He can only project one thing, and that is love. He's the spotless Lamb who himself became a scapegoat. He is the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. He's not out to get you. He's for you. Even in the midst of our curved inwardness, even in the midst of our own scapegoating, Jesus didn't come to manipulate you. He didn't come to change you. He simply came to love you, to give himself for you and heal you. And that will change you, by the way. He doesn't want you to hide behind your discipline or your supposed righteousness or your supposed holiness or your law-keeping or your religious rites or rituals as if that is something good to offer him. He doesn't want you to hide behind any other scapegoat other than himself, because Jesus, he's the scapegoat. And he defines it beautifully. In the scriptures, he says, all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned each one his own way, and the Lord has laid on himself the iniquity of us all. Now that's the type of scapegoat that I need. It's the type of scapegoat you need. Turn to Jesus. Let him do what he's already done. Admit where you need to admit. Fall into the embrace of Jesus. Run to the cross. Run to the one who loves you and forgives you and gave his life for you. Run to Jesus and be healed. Amen.